Why does it always seem that I have to do everybody's job for them and do all the necessary research in order to get people to wake up and see reality before their eyes? But so many of us in America just love to put the blinders on ourselves. See, typically, when the concept of the blinder is used, that's something that someone who wants to maintain control over a beast of burden, essentially a pack animal, a slave, if you will, to get this animal to keep going in the direction that the one who's holding the reins wants it to go in. And so it puts these little shields over its eyes so that it can't look to the right or to the left to see the grass on either side, in the sense that, hey, it's gets a little bit of its own independent streak and decides to go out to where the grass is greener, so to speak. So that same concept is used in order to control the masses in America, but our problem with that is that we subject to it willingly, so much so, in fact, that we don't need anybody to put the blinders on for us. All we need to do is to have somebody yell something about terrorism, or to talk about our rights and our freedoms are going to be, and everything is a little bit of a scare tactic. So go out and get your duct tape, go out and get your guns, go out and have a pack of dogs, and whatever. And you idiots just run and bum rush for it, because one little bad thing happened, and because the little bad thing happened, then suddenly you're looking at the worst case scenario. That's going to mean that everybody's going to go overly ballistic, and they're going to be hyper reactionary in trying to correct the situation. And yes, it does happen at times. Remember comic books, anybody? Remember the comic book code authority, or whatever the thing was called, which lasted for so long it damn near killed the comic book industry? Yeah, so there are situations where we can overreact due to somebody's concern about the safety or the well-being or the moral driving force of our nation or our security and all that stuff. It's something that happens. Let's not play two sides about this stuff. So I know that in this latest argument over this whole gun control thing, or this whole thing about registering your firearms, there's a lot of that same insanity that's going around, where, oh, you got to blame the violent video game. And how many more times are we going to keep blaming violent video games for the fact? I mean, games were no less violent back in the when was William Jefferson Clinton elected, and games like Mortal Kombat came out, and all these shoot 'em ups and everything, and stuff started getting more hyper realistic. Gee, wasn't it amazing that during Clinton's entire 2 terms, the crime rate miraculously kept going down? Oh, but I thought it was the violent video games. And so now we've got another liberal president, one that doesn't look back at history of somebody within his own party even, and doesn't have the sense to realize, it's like, look, it's not the games, it's the hands of the people that you put them in. And this is the same argument that we're making with the whole gun control argument. But of course, the NRA and those who fall in on these conspiracy theories and talking about they're coming to get our guns. You know what? They've been coming to get our guns since, what year is this now? How long has this country been in existence? Ain't nobody came and took your guns yet. You want to know why? Because ain't nobody coming to get your guns, dumbass. But you use the little scare tactics, and you talk about the revolution that never comes, and you're always high and running scared because it used to be the red menace. First it was actually before them it was the black menace, because oh my god, these Negroes are going to be left off the plantations. Now they're going to be on their own. They're going to have so much hatred. And so oh yeah, gun control in the NRA. How does that fit in with freed slaves? Oh yeah, it seems that when the Ku Klux Klan was no longer officially recognized, up pops the NRA, and they kind of have the same sort of philosophy. It's like, keep the guns out of the hands of the niggers. Gee, imagine how that. And I thought the NRA was all about the citizens' rights to keep and bear arms. And now here are these new citizens. Granted, they've got darker skin, and they got maybe a little bit of a angry streak behind them right now, because of the fact that they and their parents and their grandparents and their great-grandparents had to suffer through some of the most horrific maltreatment at the hands of the people who are now the gun nuts. But, you know, you didn't want to give them their rights as American citizens. You didn't want them to be part of the, well, like, don't let me jump ahead of myself right now, because what I'm about to say next has, is very important, and it's very pertinent and germane to exactly why I decided to get up here and rant my guts out again. But this thing about these scare tactics that the NRA and everybody with these conspiracy theories, these Alec Joneses types, and gosh, to think that at one time I actually halfway admired Alex Jones. Oh my God, what the hell was I thinking? But see, that's how gullible we are. We hear somebody spin a nice story, and they feed us with just the right amount of propaganda to get us all worried and to get us to shaking in our boots and sweating a little bit, or to get us to question authority, which questioning authority is not a bad thing, but you want to keep it within the realm of reality. And see, that's a trick that Hitler learned. Tell a big enough lie and tell it often enough, eventually it becomes the truth. And the NRA right now, they're Joseph Goebbels all over again. And these conspiracy nut jobs and the 9/11 truthers and all these blithering idiots, they've got you so played on a puppet string that y'all see the strings, but you don't care. Because as long as somebody's making the decisions for you and somebody's guiding your footsteps for you, well, that means that you don't have to expend any time thinking for yourselves and coming to your own conclusions and doing your own research and getting the facts, because you like fantasy too much. You like being scared too much. It's something about Americans love to piss their pants. I don't know what it is. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know why it is. I don't know, maybe because you're looking at your own history and seeing how you just pretty much run roughshod over everybody else who was different from you or something, and maybe there's a little bit of this fear and angst that, well, hey, you know, for what we have done, you know, the Bible says that as ye have done, so shall it be done unto you, and the sins of the fathers shall be visited upon the sons and the grandsons and the great grandsons of those who hate me, and blah. So I don't know, maybe that's where some of it comes from, I don't know. But seeing how I'm kind of rambling with this little preamble, if you will, and kind of not really getting straight to the point, I'll just go ahead and I'll just make this sort of like a basic commentary, because what I really want to get into, like I said, it's something that anybody and everybody could have done. If anybody wants any answers as to why this whole thing about whether or not gun control should be allowed or not, that's an argument in and of itself. Whether the private citizens should actually have the right to own and keep and bear firearms or whatever. It actually, and see, here's another thing too, that you Second Amendmenters love to forget or overlook. It talks about the right to keep and bear arms. It didn't say anything about firearms. It said to keep and bear arms. You know what? A machete is an arm. A sword is an arm. A club and a mace is an arm. You do know that, right? I mean, oh, that's right, I forgot. Most of y'all went to school, but none of you ever got an education. I keep forgetting who I'm talking to. This is America. So, but anyway, this whole thing about the argument about whether or not the Constitution guarantees each and every citizen a right to actually own weapons, that's the major big argument. Now, whether anybody wants to make the argument for or against, that's really out of my jurisdiction as far as I'm concerned. I really could care less one way or the other if people own a bunch of guns or whether anybody owns no guns. But just understand and keep in mind that with gun ownership comes responsibility. And with a lack of responsibility typically comes consequences, which is why everybody's up in arms now about these school shootings over in Massachusetts or Connecticut. Now you've got another one over there in California. Some kid got bullied for a year, and now it's like, oh yeah, you know, give them access to a weapon, and you know, chances are they might use it. And oh, by the way, wasn't it interesting, you NRA gun nuts and you nut dragging, you know, don't take my gun, you can have my gun when you pry it from my cold dead hands, and the only thing to stop a bad man with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Gee, but isn't it interesting that in that California school shooting, it was actually a man who didn't have a gun that managed to address that situation and managed to. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm getting a headache again. I can't keep doing this logic shit with you guys. It just. Oh my gosh. Let me take a couple of deep breaths because I think I'm just going to keep hyperventilating. My head's going to explode at some point trying to explain, a little bit of reality to you morons. So anyway, let me try to get back on track here. If anybody wants to argue pro or con as far as people owning their own weapons, firearms, or whatever, that's your argument. You deal with it. Have a happy. But what I don't like is when you try to take your little agenda and your little pet project and you try to assign it with some legitimacy to something else which speaks nothing of the kind, and you're pushing interpretations and you're giving these offering these false dichotomies, and you're using this as your justification to push your own particular agenda. And the area where I really get annoyed where this happens is when you have written official documentation. I go hyperballistic anytime anybody misapplies their agenda and they try to quote Bible scripture, and I do the same thing when they do it with the Constitution. And what you gun nuts are talking about is you're bastardizing the Constitution, specifically the Second Amendment, in order to push this little private agenda that you have. Say, well, the Constitution guarantees everybody has a right to have a gun. No, it doesn't. Because again, as I explained, it says absolutely nothing about whether or not anybody should keep and own firearms. So that's your first mistake. But then number two, even if it was, you're still overlooking the fact that the Second Amendment is the only amendment in the Constitution and the Bill of Rights that has a condition. See, all the other rights are God-given, as they say, or they're endowed by our Creator, or their Creator, as they say. And it doesn't say God either. For all you religious nutcases who want to talk about the Constitution talks about our God-given rights, it doesn't say jack shit about a God. Read it again. It says endowed by their Creator. It doesn't specify who or what that Creator is. So again, learn how to look, learn how to read, learn how to get your head out of your asses, learn how to stop pushing an agenda based upon your own emotional interpretations on things. So when I come back, I'm going to do a second part of this because I don't want to run over the standard 15 minutes on this. But I'm going to come back and I'm going to present something to you to show you exactly what the Second Amendment means, why there's a conditional, what the conditional means, and who actually falls into the category of those who the Second Amendment was actually supposed to be in reference to. So that's going to come, I don't know, maybe immediately. Maybe I'll take a little bit of a breather and get myself something to drink. Maybe I'll sleep on it for a night or something. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do this just yet, but trust me, I'm coming back and I'm going to give you another history lesson, and I'm going to give you some schooling, and especially some courses in American government that your high schools and your colleges either didn't teach you, or you just happen to skip absent on those particular days when these things were being taught. So stand by, I'll be back.